Hello and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 9. So our topic report is Prevalence of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder among medical students of University Kuala Lumpur Royal College of Medicine Perak. So this group consists of 5 people, which are Adam Adham bin Marzuki, Amirul Hafiz Haikal bin Muhammad Fazli, Cik Muhammad Ajwad Aiman bin Cik Aziz, Hazi Naim bin Nikmat, and Amirul Nasif bin Azman. Okay, these all are our contents. We will present about abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, result discussion, conclusion, and we have reflection on the last slide.
So, Assalamualaikum. My name is Amir Hafiz Aika bin Muhammad Fazli. So, I'll be discussing about the abstract of the study. So, the study is a cross-sectional study where we aim to determine the ADHD prevalence among medical students and socio-demographic relationship. So we use the system ASRS, which is Adult ADHD Self-Report Scale, and we distribute this survey to the all MABS students in Unicare LRCMP, which we have here is 738 students from year 1 to year 5. But then 206 responses are collected and were analyzed. So we ask them their age, gender, year of study, and ethnicity. But when we analyze the result, there is not really an association, but the state of origin shows a significant correlation where we can see state like Selangor or and Negeri Sembilan have higher percentage compared to the lower one. And then this also suggests a potentially higher prevalence of ADHD among medical students. So this is a call for management to kind of do something like maybe program that could raise the ADHD awareness among medical students so that this ADHD prevalence can be decreased among these medical students of Unicare CMP. So some of the keywords are ADHD prevalence, medical students, social demographic factors, and Malaysia. I will start for the second part, introduction. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by the persistent pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So while often diagnosed in childhood, this symptom can persist until adulthood, which can impact an individual life, including their academic and occupational functioning. So, as a medical student myself, I know that medical field demand a nature of medical education where it involves a challenging environment with high academic requirements and significant stress. So, for medical students, the symptom of ADHD such as difficulty in organizing tasks or dividing attention can be challenging to manage and may negatively impact the performance and overall well-being of a student. So this demographic analysis include age, which is 19 to 20, 21 to 22, and 23 and above. Also, we have sex, ethnicity, year of study, and state of hometown. So there is no exclusion for this study where, for example, students who are already diagnosed with ADHD or who are currently undergoing treatment of ADHD are not excluded, as our main objective is to determine the overall prevalence of ADHD in among medical students in Unicare RCMP. So the main objective of this is to determine the prevalence of ADHD and its relationship with the socio-demographic factor. So whether they differ between gender, sex, state of hometown, and maybe different population. Okay, so next we'll go to the literature review. So first we have overview of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder ADHD. So as I mentioned just now, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder which involves someone having persistent symptom of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So, while typically considered a childhood disorder, ADHD symptom persists into adulthood in approximately 60% of cases, affecting between 3 to 5% of adults globally. This is based on IM and Tamarelli 2023. So, diagnosing ADHD within the context of medical education present particular challenge where we know that medical education demands an academic environment coupled with the stigma surrounding ADHD contributes to underreporting and underdiagnosis of this disorder. So next we'll go to the prevalence of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder ADHD among students. So the disability registry data from the Association of American Medical College AMC suggests a prevalence between 0.9% and 1.4%, whereas self-reported rates are notably higher, ranging from 3.5% to 24.4%. This is based on IM and Tamarelli 2023. So this result may attribute to differences in study methodology, diagnostic and criteria, where some of the medical students might hesitate to disclose their condition due to concerns about judgment and professional repercussion. So some students also like they employ some coping mechanism to mask the symptom, compensating through their intellectual ability, and structured academic support. So, this untreated ADHD in medical student can make the students to face difficulty with time management, clinical responsibility, and effective study technique, which result in graduation, lower licensing exam score, and struggle in securing residency position in hospital, especially in government hospital. So ultimately, affecting the patient care by impeding the development of essential clinical skill based on IM and Tamarelli 2023. So last, we have factors affecting the manifestation of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So there's a high rate of comorbidity between ADHD and depressive disorder, particularly in high stress environment based on Anjua et al. 2020, and medical students with ADHD are 7 times more likely to experience depressive symptoms compared to their non-ADHD peers based on Shen et al. 2018 and Karawet Panyawong et al. 2021.
So my name is Muhammad Amirul Nasib Azman. Next, we're moving on to the methodology. For the research type, for the study, we conducted a cross-sectional design, which means we collected data from our participant at a single point in time rather than following them over a period. This design was chosen because our main goal was to assess the prevalence of ADHD symptoms among MBBS students at a specific moment rather than looking at how symptoms develop or change over time. The research took place at the University of Kuala Lumpur UNIKL RCMP, specifically within the Faculty of Medicine, where all MBBS students enrolled. This location was chosen due to the convenience of access to participants and the relevance of the student population to the study's objective. Data collection was scheduled between the end of December 2024 and the end of January 2025, allowing students time to respond while balancing academic schedules. Next, how the data collected in our study. So the primary method of data collection was through an online survey. We used Google Forms to design and distribute the questionnaire. This platform was selected from its ease of use, accessibility on multiple devices, and ability to securely collect and store large volumes of data. To reach our participants, we utilized popular student communication channels such as WhatsApp and Telegram. These platforms are widely used by MBBS students, which help maximize reach and response rates. The questionnaire was open for responses during the data collections window, and participation was voluntary. All responses were collected anonymously to ensure confidentially and encourage honest self-reporting. Okay, next we're moving on to the participation. So our target population consists of MBBS students at UNIKL RCMP with a total population size of 738 students. To be eligible, participants needed to be 19 years of age or older and willing to provide consent to take part in the study. One important note is that we did not exclude students who had a prior diagnosis of ADHD or who were undergoing treatment. This decision was intentional as we aimed to assess the overall prevalence of ADHD symptoms, including undiagnosed or subclinical cases within the specific population. We used a self-selection sampling method, meaning students decided for themselves whether to participate after receiving the survey invitation. While this method can introduce some bias, it was suitable for an anonymous and voluntary online survey. Based on population size, we calculated a required sample size of 205 students using the OpenAP software. This calculation was based on an estimated ADHD symptom prevalence of 24.4%, a 95% confidence level, and a 5% margin of error to ensure statistical reliability. Lastly, we're moving on to the tools and instruments that we use in our study. So we use several standardized tools to gather and analyze data. The core of our assessment was the Adult ADHD Self-Report Scale, which is ASRS, a well-established screening tool developed in collaboration with the World Health Organizations. The ASRS consists of multiple items, and we specifically use its Part A and Part B. Part A is considered the most predictive of an ADHD diagnosis, and scores of 14 or higher suggest the respondent may meet the DSM-5 TR criteria for adult ADHD. For Part B, it adds insight into the severity of its symptoms and how they affect day-to-day functioning. A score of 27 or more on Part B is considered clinically significant. Some interpretations also included a total score, combining Parts A and Part B, or Part A and Part C, depending on the version, which most converted to a percentile score relative to normative adult data. We also collected demographic information, including gender, age, ethnicity, year of study, and state of origin, through structured questions at the beginning of the survey. A Likert scale was used throughout the tool of quantify the frequency and severity of symptoms, such as hyperactivity, inattention, and impulsivity. For data entry and analysis, responses from Google Forms were reviewed for completeness, and any incomplete or contradictory responses were removed. The data were organized using Microsoft Excel, and statistical analysis was conducted using IBM SPSS Statistics version 29. Then we applied descriptive statistics like frequencies and percentages to summarize demographic variables and symptoms level. To assess relationships between variables, we use inferential statistics, particularly the chi-square test, to identify significant associations between demographic factors and ADHD symptoms. A p-value less than 0.05 was used to determine statistical significance, and cross-tabulations help visualize the relationships more clearly.
Now we will look at the findings of the study. A total of 206 students participated, with the highest number came from the Year 2 students, making up 51% of the respondents, while Year 1 contributed 80% and the remaining years ranged from 5 to 70%. The gender breakdown showed a majority of female participants, which is 69% compared to 31% of males. In terms of age, most students, which is 61%, were between 21 to 22 years old, and ethnically 98% of the respondents were Malay, with small representations from Indian, Chinese, and other backgrounds. Geographically, participants came from across Malaysia, with the largest group from Selangor, Perak, and Kelantan. Importantly, the study found that 70 students, around 34%, scored 40 or above on the ADHD screening section, indicating symptoms of ADHD. Next, we will look at the distribution of ADHD-like symptoms among medical students with a focus on gender, age, academic year, and geographic location. The study involved 206 participants, consisting of 143 females and 63 males. Using the chi-square test, researchers we sought to identify any statistically significant associations between gender and ADHD symptoms. Results show that 27 males and 43 females exhibited clinically ADHD-like symptoms. When further broken down, 16 males had high symptoms and 11 had very high symptoms, while 34 females had very high symptoms and 9 had 34 females had high symptoms and 9 had very high symptoms. Despite these numbers, the p-value was 0.074, indicating no statistically significant difference between genders. Next, the study assessed the age groups of 9 to 20 years old, 21 to 22 years old, and above 22 years old. Among those aged 19 to 20, 14 students were classified with ADHD-like symptoms, 4 with high and 10 with very high scores, and the 21 to 22 age group showed 41 students with symptoms, 14 with high and 27 very high. Among those over 32, 50 students exhibited symptoms, where 6 had high symptoms and 9 very high symptoms. However, with a p-value of 0.38, again no significant age-related differences were found. Moving on to this year of study, Year 2 had the largest group of 105 students, and Year 5 had the smallest with only 11 students. The results show that ADHD symptoms were distributed across all years. For example, in year 2, 34 students had clinical ADHD symptoms, and year 5, 7 students did. But again, statistical analysis showed the p-value of 0.279, suggesting no significant association between year of study and ADHD prevalence. However, at examining state of origin, the findings were different. Students came from various Malaysian states, with Selangor, Perak and Kelantan showing the highest numbers. In particular, Kelantan had 17 students with symptoms, which 13 of whom very high scores, and Melaka, Putrajaya and Sabah also show high proportion of affected students. The chi-square test for geographic distribution showed a p-value of 0.001, indicating a statistically significant difference. This means ADHD symptoms were not evenly distributed by state.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Cik Muhammad Aiman bin Cik Aziz. So I will present about the discussion of our group report. So we know that our research objective is to know the prevalence of significance of ADHD, between ADHD and gender, and association of ADHD with other social demographic factors like gender, age, and ethnicity. So we found that there is a significant between student state of origin and ADHD prevalence. We found that Selangor has the highest number of cases, maybe due to large population. So besides that, we also know that Selangor is the nearby state to the Perak. So maybe more student from the Selangor. Besides that, Negeri Sembilan show the highest percentage, and for the next one is Terengganu and Pahang, which are had 0 cases. This is maybe due to the limiting of sample size. So we also found that there is no significant association between ADHD and gender, age, year of study, and ethnicity. Based on the past research, we found that only one research that is not same as our objective, which are one research state that there is a significant between gender and ADHD prevalence. Meanwhile, other research state there is no significant between the ADHD and gender. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Adham bin Marzuhan, and we move on to the last one, which is the conclusion part. So here's something that really stood out to us. About 34% of our respondents showed symptoms of ADHD, and that's a pretty big number, and it actually made ADHD the most common mental health concern in our study. Now, we kind of expected a high rate given how intense and stressful medical school can be, but still, 34% is quite surprising. What's also interesting is that when we look at age, gender, year of study, and ethnicity, none of those were significantly linked to ADHD symptoms, but we did notice a small connection with students' state of origin. And that might just be due to sampling bias, but it's something worth noting, right? And the bigger picture, this tells us that ADHD might be more common and more overlooked in high-pressure academic settings like ours. So we think it's really important to push for early screening, more education and proper support so students who are struggling don't end up being left behind either emotionally or academically.